My family forced me into marriage. Now, I'm paying $60K to divorce my toxic wife, but my parents say it's my fault. I've been stuck in this messed up situation for almost 2 years now, and I honestly need to get it off my chest. My parents, super traditional, basically forced me into a marriage I never wanted. They always insist they know what's best, even when I was screaming no. My father pushed me for ages, believing a son is only complete with a wife. My mother would cry and guilt trip me, wailing about how I was breaking her heart. Then the extended family I barely speak to piled on, saying I'd shame everyone if I didn't go along with it. I tried to stand my ground, but my father pulled the ultimate move. Let's just do a short engagement, he said. See how you like it. Next thing I knew, they were setting a wedding date barely weeks away. My parents and relatives took over all the planning. I was just told to show up and say yes. On the day of the wedding, I felt completely numb. My wife seemed okay at first, but it felt like we were ticking boxes on a checklist, not actually connecting. We moved in together, and things went from awkward to downright toxic. She complained about the tiniest things, how I folded my clothes, why I didn't ask her opinion before cooking dinner, the fact that I came home an hour late from work. Every argument escalated into her screaming about how I didn't respect her. Then she'd call her parents, spinning the story so it sounded like I was mistreating her. The next day, her father would call to accuse me of being a crappy husband. 3 months into this nightmare, I told my parents I wanted out, I was done. But did they listen? No. My father flipped out, yelling about how I was throwing away all the family's hard work and humiliating everyone. My mother brought out the waterworks again, sobbing about how society would judge us. Meanwhile, my wife claimed I was abandoning her just because things got tough. This wasn't tough. This was a person who seemed to get off on constant conflict. So I said the big D word, divorce. My father was horrified. He and my mother insisted I try couples counseling. Fine, we did 2 sessions. It was a total show. She refused to admit any wrongdoing and turned every question into a blame game. When I told her I wanted a divorce for real, she started throwing threats. I'll tell everyone you abuse me. I'll ruin your life. She even demanded I hand over my personal savings to prove I was serious about working on our marriage. That was a huge no. I got a lawyer who said I had grounds to file, but it wouldn't be cheap. He estimated with all the fees and potential spousal support, I was looking at around $60,000, a chunk of money I'd been saving for an actual future. When I broke the news to my parents that I was officially filing, they flipped. My father said it was all my fault for not trying harder. My mother gave me a wounded look, saying I was being irresponsible. Nobody cared about my well-being. It was all about saving face. Once the process started, my wife and her parents began harassing me constantly, screaming voicemails, manipulative texts, a roller coaster of emotions. Then she took it to the next level. She showed up at my workplace and caused a huge scene in the lobby, telling my coworkers I was abandoning her. My supervisor had to get security involved. It was beyond humiliating. Of course, I immediately got a text from my father, blaming me times for embarrassing the family. My lawyer suggested a restraining order, which I filed. My parents called me, saying I was going too far. They told me to drop it and maybe just hand over some money so my wife's family would calm down. They were basically telling me to bribe her into not making a scene. That was the moment I realized they cared zero about me and 100% about not looking bad. My wife ramped up her smear campaign, telling anyone who'd listen that I was abusive and a liar. My father then hosted a family meeting behind my back, painting me as an ungrateful son. That's when I said, screw it. I emailed a bunch of relative screenshots of how my parents emotionally blackmailed me into the wedding and how my wife had threatened me. The fallout was intense. Some relatives were pissed at my father for manipulating them. Others felt guilty for taking sides against me. In court, my wife and her parents acted like saints, but my lawyer laid out every piece of evidence. The judge wasn't buying her story. He told both parties to cut the crap, negotiate a fair settlement, and finalize the divorce. Walking out of that courtroom, I realized the worst might finally be over. My bank account took a massive $60,000 hit, but at least I was free. Once it was all said and done, I cut off my parents completely. They never apologized. They never admitted they messed up. They just kept saying, it's all your fault. Friends told me I was making a drastic move, but they forced me into a miserable arrangement, then blamed me when I dared to break free. Now, I'm rebuilding my life. I'm still pissed. I had to blow $60,000 to escape a nightmare I never wanted, but the relief is priceless. I can finally breathe. If my parents want to keep yelling about how I'm a disgrace, they can do it without me. I'm done living for someone else's approval. I'm just done.